rights recognized in the new Constitution. Section 35 and 35.1. I don't want to get bogged down in these numbers, but they're there in the highest law of Canada in the Constitution. It's there right now. But the other thing I want to share with you as it relates to British Columbia, because we never gave our land out. We never got conquered. Canada also has in the Constitution what's called the... How many of you have heard the word Pontiac? Put your hand up. Pontiac.
Only relating to car.
That's you? As a car, right? We think of it as a car. Pontiac is not a car. Pontiac is the name of an Odawa warrior who fought the British and was kicking them pretty good back in the 1763. He's so good that the British got worried. They're going, we've got these indigenous people that are beating us up pretty good, and meanwhile we got these American colonies that we are worried about encroaching on this land. So what the British Crown did is they created what's called the Royal Proclamation of 1763. 1763. And what that says is that in that agreement, that as the British Crown, if I wanted to come and take your land as an indigenous nation in the Northwest Coast, I would have to negotiate with you. Fair enough. So that went into British Royal Proclamation 1763. Canada gets a British North America Act Constitution in 1867. And then in 1982, Canada gets its own constitution. Royal Proclamation is in it. Section 35 and 35.1 of the new Constitution, which says we have the inherent right to self-government, treaty negotiations, all these things. It's all in there. If you've never read the Constitution, I encourage you to read it. I actually just checked it out again the other day, because I had read it several times. It's been a while, but I read it again. So what our chiefs are fighting for, what the Idle No More are fighting, what the four Idle No More women are fighting for, what Chief Spence is simply arguing and demanding is that the Canadian state honor the Constitution, honor Section 35, honor the Royal Proclamation of 1763, where Pontiac, the Odawa warrior, was kicking some serious British gluteus maximus. Right? This is what it is. This is what it comes down to. And it's about the survival, and not just the survival of our people. It's about the lifting up of our people, the thriving of our people. Any which way the state looks at it, we are the first peoples of the land. We never gave it up. One of the chiefs said on national television, we didn't negotiate treaties so we would be poor. Right? But that's what we have. Oh, back to Chief Spence. I'm going to get there. Chief Spence. Because the thing is this, and we have to know this. I don't know how many, I don't watch television anymore, and I don't read newspapers. I refuse to buy magazines. I absolutely refuse to do that. The more I learned about the media, the more I learned about who owns the media, and the more I learned about what they're trying to teach us, I refuse to give them any of my money. So, the media came out not that long ago, I think this is what you're referring to, and they said, Chief Spence got $90 million, they had an audit by Deloitte and Touche, and that there was over 400 transactions where the proper paperwork wasn't in there and all this kind of stuff. They came out and they hammered Spence. Yeah. They hammered her. Right? She's discredited. She's got no honor. She's got no integrity. She's just another Indian chief who's taken all the money and misappropriated. That was the message. But what they didn't tell you was that the audit they did was for when she wasn't chief. She wasn't the chief at the time. And the 400 transactions they're talking about, it could be just a simple gas receipt or whatever. We don't know the details. But when Chief Spence came in the 2.5 years that she has been chief, there's been 40 documents. And they could, and what the auditor said, their auditor said, is that there's no misappropriation of money. She's not stealing money. that the mainstream media didn't tell us. They just tried to discredit it.
Yeah, and they backed it up with a comment from one of their finance people.
Yeah.
Yeah. The federal government. They had the audacity to bring in somebody to say, yes, this is true.
So you have to be very selective where you get your information from. And that's, again, another reason why I don't watch television. I mean, I'll watch the news on Facebook. I'll use social media because I trust people on my social media. They put good news on there, and then they put a critique on it. Right? Question everything.
Yeah. As soon as I heard that, I knew, oh, that is so typical. You know, we have a First Nations person who happens to be a woman speaking up, and so they want to discredit her and thinking we'll all buy that? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, what's the ultimate, like, at the end of this island war? Like, shouldn't it be about having a higher percentage of Métis and Aboriginal in House of Commons and Parliament?
It's a good question. Number one, nobody owns Idle No More. It's a movement. Nobody owns it. So, we could have an Idle No More movement ourselves, right here. We can sit there and say, okay, we're going to do something, and that's ours. Right? It's not like a hierarchy where there's a boss, and then these are all your sergeants, and these are all your... No, it's not that. It's a movement. It's yours. It's your future children's movement. Your grandchildren's movement. So Idle No More has demanded that the Canadian state retract these omnibus bills. They demanded that they honor the Constitution, Section 35. Read it. Section 35(1), where they have to consult with First Nations leadership. They have to consult with us. Read it. It's right there.
So Scott, we hear Bill C-45 that, and I really want to understand, what is it that Harper wants, what is this about Bill C-45 have to do with?
Yeah, okay, I'll answer that, but I want to finish on that point there, because it's related. Their end goal, I mean, that's what the media is saying. What do you want? What do you people want? You're fighting now amongst yourselves. That's what the media is saying. And what's really important about Chief Spence and about now the media saying that we're all busy fighting with ourselves and Idle No More is going crazy, is as long as they can focus over here, right, and deflect, they don't have to talk about Bill C-45. They don't have to talk about the Constitution. They don't have to talk about Section 35 of the Royal Proclamation. So what do we want? How many of you by hand have heard of the Oka crisis? A few of us, quite many of us. Well, right after the Oka crisis, which is the Mohawks, back east, some people wanted to build a golf course on their gravesite, and the Mohawks said, no, this is not going to happen. Armed conflict, national response, and ultimately a military standoff between them and the Mohawks. And it was a movement across the country. People were supporting them. But what they did after that, the government's very smart. They created the most expensive royal commission in Canadian history, called the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, RCAP. 440 recommendations, 6 volumes of books. I read them. It's actually a good read. I encourage you to get your hands on it. I mean, I wouldn't read them all, but what do we want? Well, the RCAP made 440 recommendations around all these issues. That was in '96, I think, that came out. Was it '96? Or it was in around '96. The report came out. How many of those recommendations have been implemented? Very few, if any. So a lot of people, including our chiefs, are saying, let's look at the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. One of the recommendations they said in RCAP was that we should have X number of seats in the federal parliament. Right? They said there at the federal. They didn't talk about provincial or municipal. So there's a whole bunch of things that RCAP gave the government will respond. This is a common, you see it all the time. This is a common tactic. You see it everywhere. Oh, let's create a committee. Let's create a process. Let's put a bunch of money over there. You saw that with the missing and murdered inquiry thing over there and all the millions they spent on that. And it went away and it hit over there, basically sort of smoke and mirrors. Let's not deal with the real issues. Let's put it over here.